Tiffany, look at that hat.
Good evening, all, and welcome to After Dark. We've got the Vampire, Lieutenant Chicken Sandwich, and Captain Aaron, Captain Richard Still, Admiral Jeff Higdon, Lieutenant J.G. Tiffany. I'm not even trying your last name. I'll make it wrong. Captain Michael Ballwich.
Oh, it's close enough.
Drew's outside, and me from the Russell Camp, and Fleet Captain John from the Constellation. And I thought I saw Steve here for a second. So maybe he's trying to get in. Right now he's having a little bit of technical difficulties with the weather again. But as people come in, we'll be having people come in, and we're going to be rotating throughout the night. So let's have it as a fun show. Master Chief Petty Officer of Starfleet, Mike, or Matt, hold on. You didn't put your name down, buddy.
Oh, I was being deceptive.
Master Chief Petty Officer, what's his name?
Here, let me fix that.
Thank you, sir. But welcome to the show. Like I said, as people come in, there were a lot of people who wanted to be on the show for the end of the year show. So as people come in, we will be rotating in and out. So have fun, and it's your show tonight.
So will we be hearing Pop Goes the Weasel as we swap people out?
He's just
Because I
going to
think
kick
it
us
will be
out.
interesting to hear da-da-da-da as the person comes out, a new one comes in. I think it'll be interesting.
I think he's just going to kick us out. No warning. So if you're not
Just gonna
interested
kick us
enough,
out,
you're going to
huh?
go.
No, he's just gonna send us to the green room.
And
I think my theme song would be "Ding Dong, the Witch is Gone."
I'd like to thank Rob in chat. He actually created the new intro and outro for the show. So he's been working all afternoon, and there will be changes to the outro in the future where we'll actually have the guest rank and all, but we're a little bit over text today. So
That's fair.
Well, I mean, this is the first time this group has done the presentation, right? From start to finish. So you guys
Yeah.
are essentially, I mean, you guys essentially, you're reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, we put it together in a week.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, it's understandable that things aren't 100% because, let's face it, you only had a week.
Yeah, but you know, we've got a. We feel we have Starfleet behind us, so we got a damn good, solid amount of support. So,
What's everybody drinking?
Well, something non-alcoholic because medication that I am on will not allow me to consume alcoholic beverages, unfortunately.
Good for you.
Non-alcoholic.
But also,
wine.
actually, as of tonight, 2015, I officially quit drinking. So tonight is what, the 5th or 6th anniversary?
Congratulations.
I mean, I'll have,
wonderful.
a glass of wine here and there, but other than that, really like consuming alcoholic beverages, like I said, was it 5-6 years?
Yeah.
Which
That's
is really going
really
to suck when
good.
it comes to cons because I love making my Supreme Fleet Commander's grade of Romulan ale, which has been known to decrease warp engines, and warp engines don't use grease.
Tiffany, what are you drinking?
Non-alcoholic white wine, which I'm actually very thrilled to say has been
So I
featured
just
a
want to
lot
tell
this
everybody,
holiday season.
unfortunately, I have no power at my house, so I couldn't get on here and do this. I'm doing this from my phone, so we had to come into Paducah. So hope everybody has a happy New Year and blessed days, and hopefully we'll see each other at the end, beginning of 2022.
Are you going to drink a shot with us, Steve? No?
Apparently not. Thanks, Skipper.
Stay
At least he
safe,
was able
Bob.
to get on for a second.
Happy New Year.
Once
Steve.
more, I'm going to preach, my friends.
To answer Aaron's question, I am drinking a beverage called the Empress's Death.
What's in it?
Red sour or raspberry sourpuss, blue carousel, and ginger ale.
That sounds fancy. John, what are you having? Amstel, good. What about you, Jeff?
Good old 7-Up.
Perfect.
Well, with what I'm going through, I better not drink any alcohol.
Yeah, I hear you. What's the Russell Camp having?
PG tips for me.
Same, because
It's tea.
it's waking me up enough to do the show.
Yeah.
Perfect.
He's had 2 hours of sleep in 48 hours.
Oh,
yeah.
Rob, that would be awesome.
It's a good size nap. All right, what's everybody else having?
I have a soda stream, so I make my own cherry limeade, which goes wonderful with spiced rum.
Okay.
I'm having a stone martini up with olives.
Yeah.
And a very happy
Wow.
New Year to our fleet historian.
Hi, Eugene. How are you?
Yes. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Eugene.
It's nice to see everybody.
So, one thing, since we got a nice variety of people in different positions, one change that we're going to be implementing for Ask Me Anything is we're going to start doing a themed Ask Me Anything. So we'll be asking people like the Marines to have different people from the Marines to talk about the Marines. So you'll actually be able to ask questions of certain groups in SFI, and we might do, hey, let's get, say, the Nomad and have come on and talk about what they've been doing with recruiting and stuff like that, or Region 13 and their IC.
We
That
don't want
way-
Region 13 on.
Why not?
No, I mean that makes sense to spread it
giving
around and
because I've been noticing, just like Matt, our new Master Chief Petty Officer for Starfleet, and unfortunately, this is the first time he's been on a show. And I'm glad you responded. Steve goes, "Why don't you reach out?" But I'd like to have a show where we talk more about the specialty routes. That way, we can get a focus on it and have a video where somebody can ask questions and actually get to know the people actually in the show, and not just have 700 database questions.
Right.
yeah, that would be nice.
Oh, here it comes.
Here, what comes?
Database questions.
No.
No. We're referring to the tests and the programs, because once you get through with the program and you get into doing the jobs, you find there's a variation in real application to what's in the test. This way we can enhance communication and learning. It will facilitate growth.
I think it's a good idea because sometimes I have questions that I've asked a bunch of times and I never really get a reasonable answer for. So if we have, an entire show dedicated to, say, the Marines, and we kind of advertise it that way for about a week, I definitely watch it so I could ask the questions that I hadn't been able to get answered.
Well, if we get a 2-week block where we are advertising, people can put their questions in there, and the guests would be able to do a little bit of background research, talk to others doing the same job they do, and answer the question better.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super helpful. I love it.
Right, and then of course you post a video so that when you get the answer to the question, people who couldn't be there can go back and look at it.
Exactly. This way we become an extension of an extension for information, something we generally don't get just from the PDFs or whatever.
No, exactly. I mean, you set it up so that people can put questions in and have the appropriate parties answer those questions, and then of course we post the videos and everybody can see them. So that way people don't necessarily have to be present in order to get their questions answered.
Right. And you've got Starfleet in general, that there are a lot of questions we don't get answers to until we get much further along and have made some serious mistakes. This way we can prevent those mistakes and increase growth and preparation for the future. And I think should be SFI's focus, is growth.
Well, I can agree with that. And at the same time, if we can get the questions in advance to try to get answers, that's way better than having the questions come up ad hoc and then, the response being beat the hell out of me.
Well, yeah, the surprise me questions, I think, are an epic fail. You can't get pop questions answered properly. You just can't.
No, I have to agree.
And you can lay out, you can see 15, 20 questions show up, and a group that will be on that particular episode can go, now wait a minute, see them going this way, so they'll be able to figure out some of the possible pop questions where answers can be more direct and more specific to help everybody work better together.
No. Right.
Yeah, so
No.
we're just trying to follow what Russell taught us. Well, mainly me. Sean didn't get a chance to really know Russ. If you teach properly, you won't have the problem repeated.
Right.
So,
I mean, Russell was good at his job. There's no question about that.
oh yeah, yeah, he was. I know he was very safe with. He was very good at keeping me from going bananas when certain things happened and triggered flashbacks. And I'm. It was like a part of me when he went. So, and I only had 2 years to really know him. It's like he literally became a part of me in almost record time. I've never had anyone get that close like Courtney.
He was a special individual. He could talk to anybody. He could relate with everybody. He was just, he's one of a kind.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I mean, and it's appropriate to honor him in this year in review, I think.
Oh, absolutely. He was behind the scenes in almost everything, I think.
He was. He is making a lot of pies.
You know, he if nothing else, he was sharing recipes. He wanted to make sure that the best, most accurate, and caring track for SFI was built and followed.
Right.
And that's something we all, those of us especially who knew Russ, we really need to focus on that style because
Hey, Tiff.
we are the example he's left.
Are we supposed to relay this message? Okay.
Steve just posted to let everybody know. The people in the background already know about this because we announced it early. But they're having some weather issues and they don't have power at home, and the internet went out. So they actually came into Paducah just to pop in long enough to say hey.
And wish us all a happy new year.
Yeah, I don't think he was certain that we heard him on air. But we heard you, boss. Stay safe. Have a happy new year. And we'll see you on the other side of this.
Yep.
I hope they don't get anything too bad because they're still recovering.
Yeah. I mean, that's like when Florida gets hit with three hurricanes in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, this location.
Yeah,
I was here.
The last time 3 hit at one time, they all hit right here in Winter and Polk County in general.
Yeah, I mean, weather's like that because weather patterns tend to repeat themselves. And
well,
that sort of crap happens. It's no good.
I've known quite a few meteorologists who say we take a lucky shot. It's like a dart toss. You can't really predict the weather.
Right. You roll the dice, you take your chances.
Yeah.
This is what scares me because there's meteorologists that are predicting that Tornado Alley is going to extend up into Canada if it hasn't started already up into my province.
I could see that being a possibility, actually.
We've had a few touchdowns and then they just immediately poof and dissipate.
Right.
Well, look at the alterations in the high altitude wind vectors, and you'll see the possibility.
Right.
Well, remember last week Minnesota got hit with a tornado, and they haven't had one in December ever.
Yeah, the weather control grid is all kind of out of whack.
I learned through flight school that It's those upper altitude winds you've got to watch for. And every time since we've been here, every time there's been a tornado's going to hit Winter Haven, I'm like, nah, we'll get some straight lines and some rain, but that's it. And everyone's like, no, 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 no. And sure enough, when I say it's going to go to Orlando, up the Space Coast, or it's going to go straight through the Gulf, that's where it's went. And everyone's like, how did you know? Well, follow the winds that they follow, the ones up at 80, 90,000 feet. They don't follow the ones down here.
Well, weather is follow the winds, corruption is follow money.
Well, that explains the Senate and the House.
Anyway, so since we're not talking about politics, since it doesn't relate to Star Trek, Chicken Sandwich and I are going to drink a shot with you guys.
Yeah, what are you drinking a shot of?
Jägermeister.
Jaeger.
How about every time we don't talk about that subject, we take a shot?
Hang on.
That's a great idea.
You know,
then I'll really go off into the subject.
Captain Aaron Chicken Sandwich, you should try liquid cocaine.
No.
No?
We're trying to be very low key. So my my oldest.
And you're drinking Jaeger?
Yeah.
Jaeger's a liquor. It's not really all that.
No, I mean it reminds me of being in Germany, and I like licorice, so it's nice.
Right.
You been to Germany?
Detestable.
Jaeger is evil.
It is.
No,
I agree with you, Mike.
Not.
It's totally evil.
In what way?
Yes, it is. I used to, many years ago, one of my first jobs when I moved out to Ohio from New Jersey, I worked as a bouncer in a bar, which was a jack of all trades bar.
Mm-hmm.
On the weekends, we would have live bands. On Sunday would be, because it's Cincinnati Bengal country, Cincinnati Bengal game, there'll be football Sunday. Other days during the week, they would have adult entertainment, let's just put it that way. And I needed to bartend one day, and I cannot bartend to save my life.
What does
Except
this have to do
for
with Jägermeister?
Star Trek-related drinks, or see if I could get into Dungeons & Dragons-related drinks. Nice book I got for Christmas. Or just whipping stuff off the top of my head. 90% of all the drinks that I would make were all Jaeger based. So yes, Jaeger is evil. Once it gets a hold of you, it's not letting you go.
Well, Chicken Sandwich might pass out eventually. I'm usually good to go. We're not going to be able to stay too much longer, but I wanted to show everyone this beautiful Christmas gift that was sent to me.
Oh, that's nice.
Klingon competition trophy.
On did it.
Excellent.
That
nice.
Captain John Hardy commissioned to have made for me by the Russell Camp.
Well done.
Very nice.
I wanted to ask you, Aaron, I wanted to ask you something.
Sure. The suspense is killing me.
Would you like one of these?
No, she'd not like one of those.
I would like one of those.
A disruptor, nice.
Yeah.
I would also like
wait,
I would also like one of your swords, sir.
Can we have
also one for Wolfcore? Yeah.
Specifically the ones with the Judaism on it.
Can I?
Pretty please.
Okay, you can get
I know
the
I
David
can't have it.
one. The David one you can get on Amazon. The other one I picked up in Israel. There's no way I'm getting rid of it.
The other one was the one I wanted.
Go to Israel, get your own.
Do you want it as a kit or assembled?
Do I want it as a kit or assembled?
You want to make your own?
Yeah, I do want the kit.
Okay.
They've been calling me Engineer Eddie lately.
I'll have it painted when I send it, but all you'll have to do is put it together.
I love this. Hey, Matt, can we ask you questions?
Sure.
Okay, hi. Where are you from?
Well, right now I'm joining you from a little town called American Canyon, California, and that's about 40 miles northeast of Starfleet headquarters in San Francisco, and right at the start of the Napa Valley wine country.
We were just there. Chris and I were there a few months ago.
Oh, really? Where'd you stay?
We actually stayed in Reno and then we took a trip to Napa and we took a trip to San Francisco. So we
great.
just drove on these trips. But yeah, it's really nice there.
And then initially, I know somebody mentioned New Jersey a minute ago. I grew up in northern New Jersey, went to college in Jacksonville, Florida, and been in California, though, for about most of the last 30 years. So most of my adult life.
That's interesting. My life was kind of like that as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, except kind of the opposite direction. I mean, like geographically.
And to answer your earlier question, this is a Stoli Martini up with olives.
What kind of olives are in there?
These are just little Greek olives.
Good.
Yeah.
Good, Jeff.
Yeah,
So
I need to go. I'll see you all later. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Jeff.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, sir.
What chapter are you attached to, Matt?
Initially, I was attached to the USS Belknap, which is a correspondence chapter out of Northern Virginia. My lifelong best friend is the commanding officer of that unit. And so he recruited me. And when I joined, I said, well, the main thing is I want to be an enlisted man, because I just feel like that's it's a group we never hear about enough.
I know,
I
we
think,
need more of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So I've always been enlisted. I was a petty officer in the Naval Reserve, and I just thought that was kind of an interesting. I was, old school Trekker. I've watched the original series growing up in syndication. I became hooked on The Next Generation when I was in college, but it always struck me as like there was a handful of admirals and captains, a group of lieutenant commanders and lieutenants, and then about 3 million ensigns. And then I think we have about 3 documented enlisted personnel in the show. So I always thought, probably there's more to that story, and was kind of interested in exploring that a little bit. So,
Well, the thing is Gene Roddenberry, originally, when he created the series, he was a product of the 60s. All astronauts were officers. All of them. So that's why that was the way that was cast. Well, the whole role of chief petty officer came from transporter chief, which was originally Mr. Leslie. And when that happened, they didn't say he's a chief petty officer necessarily. He was the transporter chief. Well, when the Next Generation came and introduced Miles O'Brien, he was just the transporter chief, and he was wearing officer's pips. But eventually, they made it so that he was, a Master Chief Petty Officer, and that's when they started formally recognizing enlisted rates.
Yeah, but he finished as like a lieutenant.
Hmm?
He finished as a lieutenant.
yeah, he's what they call in the Navy a Mustang, someone who started enlisted and rose the officer ranks.
Exactly.
But there's
Kyle,
if you remember in the Army, the chief is actually a warrant officer.
Yeah, chief warrant officer. Yeah, that's possible.
I think that in the Starfleet, they're probably using that model because the chief is over ensigns as well.
Well, this is true, but O'Brien was a Master Chief Petty Officer, not a warrant officer.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Yeah.
he finishes DS9 with he's Master Chief Petty Officer.
Yeah, exactly. Now, on the other hand, Lieutenant Kyle, who was also for a time security chief or transporter chief, he actually ended his run in Star Trek IV as, I think, a lieutenant commander.
There's
So,
no, finish, John.
Sorry to interrupt. Chicken sandwich and I have to go.
See you.
All right.
Aaron,
Happy New
Try
Year.
not to have too much fun.
Well,
Try.
congratulations, future Mrs. Sandwich,
Not yet.
and you, Lieutenant. So,
I don't think I'll
Yes.
be taking his last name of Sandwich.
well,
I
mean,
think we're
Aaron.
just gonna keep our names the way they are.
What you don't like the idea of doing Davy's sandwich
No,
with a hyphen in it?
no, I didn't want to do that. On my first marriage, that doesn't count, I guess, because the first one's practice. I'm not
I
gonna do it
wouldn't
on this
know.
one either. No, I want
And
to have
Aaron,
this.
congratulations on 1 year in fleet.
Thank you. I
What
want to keep
has
the
been your
same last name as my kids.
What has been your favorite
Makes
moment in your first year?
No, that was awful. He's
That
like
was
telling me
confusing.
what my favorite moment was, and I was like, no.
yeah, come on. What's his
Um,
opinion?
I
I was gonna ask everybody that, and then Jeff hit the airlock real quick.
I know you put me on the spot. It's hard to say, but I have to say that the friends that I have made, um, uh, I mean, in my own chapter and in my region, are some of the best friends I've ever had in my life. It's the amount of charity work that I get to do with them is incredible. It's so fulfilling to me, especially during COVID. And I would have to say doing the charity work with my best friends is probably the most rewarding and wonderful thing. But when we found out that we collected the amount of food that we did for the CAG challenge, which was just one person alone in my club got over $1,600 for the food bank this month. That was incredible. But I got to address her students at school as Captain Davies in my uniform, and they all got into this whole role play thing, and I think that was my favorite moment.
Yeah, you gotta love that.
Yeah, it was really cool.
True enough.
Anyway, good night, guys.
Good night.
Hi, Aaron.
Good night, Captain.
Happy New Year.
Nice
Happy
to meet
New
you.
Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's.
Okay, who's next?
Well, I think there was a question that for Matt about how he got into SFI, but I'm guessing he's kind of answered that question. But just if you wanted to elaborate a little more on that, there were people asking that question.
Sure. Yeah. Yes, I was recruited again by my good friend Captain Michael Quigley, who's the commanding officer of the Belknap, and he had reached out to me and started building the chapter, and just had a lot of fun. And then, as I said, I was really interested in representing in the enlisted ranks, so worked my way over time to become the Command Master Chief of the Belknap. And then when the previous Master Chief Petty Officer of Starfleet needed to pull back for some personal reasons and go back to just being in a chapter, I was asked through my friend Captain Quigley if I'd be interested in stepping into this role, which was real exciting to me. That was probably about 5 or 6 months ago now. So it was just a really cool opportunity. But yeah, like I said, lifelong Trek fan, and was just excited to be part of SFI, and then really excited to have an opportunity like this come along so quickly afterwards.
Excuse me for a moment, folks.
Okay.
So is it actually 2022 yet? Anywhere where anyone is?
I believe John's in the new year already.
Okay, great. Well,
Because he's
happy
in
New Year.
England.
Perfect.
So he's on
John, how's-
Hulu time.
How's 2022 looking?
You're the best, son.
Are we in trouble yet? To speak to Matt's thing, I know on my ship, And I'm curious what other people's ships are like. We have two petty officers and a lance corporal, and that's as much enlisted as we have. I mean, I think in the region there are 5, maybe 6 in the entire region. Granted, my region's like 75, but anyways.
Yeah, we had a handful on the Belknap, and one of the questions that came up actually was, what are some programs and opportunities for enlisted personnel? And so that's a lot of what I'd like to do with this role is really create some career pathing, if you will, that really kind of speaks a little bit to what the enlisted's interests are. And one of the things that was always fascinating to me about actually being a petty officer in the U.S. Navy is how much is really entrusted to enlisted personnel. I mean, I went in as a reservist, so I was in my late 20s by the time I went in, and so many times I had an opportunity to go out on the USS Nimitz, for example, the aircraft carrier, and it's really humbling when you're a late 20s, early 30s person, and you think you're a professional, and you do this and you do that, but you go out on the fleet, and there's 18, 19-year-old kids, and you better listen to what they're saying because they'll keep you from getting killed, and they know what they're doing, and they're handling $45 million aircraft and moving it around in a impossibly small space. So it's just really impressive, the dedication and the technical skill of the enlisted members, here in our real universe, and so kind of borrowing some of that, if we can use some things, leverage what's already been created by Starfleet Academy for SFI's Starfleet Academy, create some testing and advancement opportunities and kind of a career path to go from crew member through petty officer through chief petty officer to master chief. I think it could be fun and really add to the fan experience of people who want to pursue that particular path.
I have to admit that we have a former bosun, Canadian Navy, is one of our. He's our chief of communications, and he's an officer here, but he was a petty officer in the Canadian Navy. And if I've learned anything in my wonderful, like armchair history, military history thing, is that you listen to your senior NCOs because they'll keep you alive.
Yes. Yeah, I've often said the best thing for any 22-year-old second lieutenant or ensign or equivalent in another country service, when you ride out of the academy or OCS, whatever it is, go find your senior NCOs and buy a case of whatever it is they like to drink. And, basically say, let me know what I need to do to not get people killed and not get people in trouble. And, offline, you have a chance, you have permission to speak freely, whatever you need to tell me, so I don't do something stupid. I actually,
Matt, I love that you said that. Honestly, I personally can't serve, but I have a lot of people in my family that have, and here in the academy, I'm a Lieutenant JG, but I love the idea of going through the ranks and working for it, and getting that experience. So I love that you have a program and a plan for that.
Thank you.
Really do.
I hope to. I've been working on it in my free time, and I hope to have something before the Admiralty Board before too long.
September 9th, 2001, I joined, the Avenger, and then later on with Fleet. And between different events, when I was on the USS Avenger, left and right, within 6 to 8 months, I got my captaincy, and I've been a captain ever since. I don't know if any of my former CEOs have ever submitted me for, advancement in ranks and stuff like that. No one can really seem to tell me anything.
It's I know from my experience, because I don't have 8 months. I had about 2.5 years before I was captain, but I mean, I'd have what most people would consider a fairly rapid progression, considering that there are definitely probably people sitting in this very area here who who sit at lower ranks and have been in in Starfleet for a lot more time than me. But sometimes it's just, for me, it was just I kept filling needs as things were, and then hence I'm maxed out.
Yeah,
I can't be
I
promoted
think
for
some of
another
the great
year and
things.
10 months.
I think some of the
That's how
great
it
things that
goes.
happened to me since I've been in fleet. God rest her soul, Emily Riley. I ended up getting the Silver Nebula for basically being in the right place at the right time. And I can't remember the year, but also getting Red Squad for Klingon Warrior Academy. Also having my essay from KWA 400 printed in the CQ. So, like I was saying, when Grandma took me to go see Star Trek: The Motion Picture back in '79, I was hooked. So,
But that's pretty much how it goes, Richard. You
I was what, 8 years
fill a
old?
need.
Yeah,
You get the rank to fill the need.
I wanted to join Starfleet way back in like 1975, but
Before I was born.
I was only 9, and my mother wouldn't let me. So it took me another almost 30 years to connect with SFI again. So, I mean, it was, it's been an interesting transition because when I came aboard, it was all crazy at the time. And so I jumped in and did what I had to do. And, Steve took good care of me. He did. He's been the skipper since I came aboard. Yeah. Motion picture. Yeah. Yeah. I agree, Rob, because they had the weird head ridges. It's like, wait a minute. They what the hell? They never looked like that before. And
I'm just the motionless picture.
Right.
the motion picture was weird.
What Matt was talking about as a gunnery sergeant in a specific theater, I'm not allowed to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lieutenant show up who was, Sergeant, I want you and your friend to come, and we're going over there. He was fresh off a bird. He had never seen nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
I was the NCOIC of a strike team, and I literally looked at him and said, "Hey, no way, no, you're more than welcome to go on your own. And, come on back and tell us what you find."
That's right. You go ahead. We're going to be right here.
He ran in and complained to the lieutenant colonel in charge. And the lieutenant colonel stuck his head out of his tent and he said, "Sergeant, come here." Wanted to know what was said. I told him exactly what was said. He looks at the lieutenant and he says, "Do you have any combat experience, actual combat experience?" And he said, "I went to the Navy War College." He said, "Do you have any actual experience?" After the third time he said the Navy War College, he said, "Let me tell you something. If the sergeant tells you to do a dump a mile high, it better be a mile and an inch, or I'm sending you back to San Diego and you will be an E1."
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm always baffled by that. I didn't serve. I've never served. I've never been a reservist. I learned this. I've known this for years. Like before I graduated from high school, I knew this is how you do things. You're an officer, but you're useless until this man over here or this woman over here says you are something else.
Exactly.
Gray.
There's a really great scene in the HBO did a mini series called The Pacific, which was sort of a companion piece to the Band of Brothers, and it was about based on a true story book of Marines' experience in the South Pacific campaign during World War II. And there's a great scene where they're all training and they're all in the gunnery range, and there's I think a young, what they call a shave-tail lieutenant out there at the firing range with him, and then there's the grizzled old gunnery sergeant who's kind of running the range. And sure enough, the lieutenant makes the classic mistake of, after firing, he kind of turns to talk to the group, still pointing his 45 now, and the gunnery sergeant just picks up a case full of shells.
I was 12 when I
throws
learned
it at
that
him,
rule.
and launches into a litany of salty language and basically just verbally abuses the guy. Say, "You ever do that again, I will shove my blanket so far up your blank." And the lieutenant kind of haplessly looks over at the major who's standing there watching the whole thing, and he just goes, "Don't look at me, Lieutenant. The gunny's right." I think it kind of just illustrated exactly that point. It's like,
I was explaining my firearms students on the line. It says, "Look, if you make an unsafe action, I'm just going to shoot you."
Slightly extreme.
So I would strongly suggest you don't do dumb shit like that.
General Gray was commandant in '89, the last time I qualified, and we both got to the range so bloody late that we had to spot for each other. And it was dark. I really couldn't tell until we were headed out. He got to the hatch before me, and he steps through, and he turns around, and he goes, "Oh, by the way, Sergeants run the court. Don't tell the commandant." About that point, I started to salute because I realized who he was. He says, "I'll put it down, Sergeant. I already know you guys can destroy me in 10 minutes."
Hey, officers can be smart.
They can, but it
Gray
takes.
Unlike most, though, that Gray was an actual frontline combat officer before he even went into administration. So he already, if you have stripes, you've already got me whooped. So.
Another true life story, speaking of officers. So in the U.S. Navy, it's called a Mustang when you start as an enlisted personnel and then work your way up to an officer's commission.
Yeah.
So,
my dad was a Mustang.
So my good friend, though I mentioned, Captain Quigley of the Belknap, he, in real life, did 30 years in the service. He enlisted in the U.S. Army as a linguist when he was 18 years old, was in the Army for about 12 years, rose to the rank of sergeant, and then received a direct commission into the Navy because the Army didn't have direct commission. So he became an intelligence officer in the Navy. So here he is in his probably about his mid-30s, newly commissioned ensign. But he's also had 12 or 14 years dedicated service in the Army. He served in Bosnia. He served in Iraq. He went to a number of different places. So he has this really impressive, what they call the fruit salad, the campaign ribbons. He got a chest full of ribbons. In about early 2000s, he was assigned to the Pentagon region, and they were dedicating the World War II memorial. There was a number of all the living ex-presidents were there, and so he was actually assigned to be the escort to one of the presidents. Since politics is a taboo subject, I won't mention which president, but he was assigned to escort this one particular president, former president, who's standing there looking at him with his single stripe, what they call butter bar ensign, with a chest full of service ribbons. And the president just kind of looks him up and down and says, "How long have you been in the Navy?" He said, honestly replied, "About 6 months." "Well, you've done very well for yourself in that time." But yeah, just great example of how you can really put your time in as an enlisted and then bring that experience to the officer ranks. And he eventually retired as a lieutenant commander.
All branches refer to him as Mustangs.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if that was just a Navy thing or that was.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is Mustangs are neither meat nor fowl. The enlisted don't trust them because they're officers. The officers don't trust them because they were enlisted. Yeah. So the only place my dad was ever welcome was the goat's locker.
Yep.
Now, so those of you who are not familiar with the American Navy, the goat's locker comes from the old wooden sailing ships where the goats were kept forward of the midshipman in the middle of the ship, but to the rear of the enlisted berthings, and they shared their space with the goats. So it became the goat's locker, but that's where the chiefs ate. And as a Mustang, my dad was, the enlisted didn't want him, the officers didn't want him, but the chiefs appreciated him. And so he had an open invitation. He only used it on steak and lobster night.
That sounds sensible.
Yeah, because
Admiral Richard Rogers was a Mustang, and he was quite fun to be around. Admiral Richard Rogers. He was in the 70s. He was 70s and 80s. He was commander of the 11th Naval District.
Ah, okay.
He was the man who, when the USS Nimitz was crossing the Panama Canal and the USS Enterprise was going the other way, he was aboard the Enterprise. The CO of the Nimitz said, man the rail for the United States Navy's flagship.
Mm-hmm.
Rogers said, pull out your ribbons, and she who's earned it's going to get it. And we had to laugh as all those men on the Nimitz were manning the rail as those medals of honor go flying through. And Rogers ran out, tossed himself out on the flying deck, and he flipped them off with both hands. He goes, go ahead, Commander, try it with me. Not only have I earned it, but this vessel has earned it. I have been her CO, and now she's moving. You will respect her.
Wow. Yeah. Dad didn't get that. He was part of the NESEP program back in the late 60s. And that was, NESEP stood for Naval Enlisted Scientific Education Program. They would take bright young petty officers and send them to college and make them officers. Well, I mean, that was great in theory, but the ring knockers, the academy graduates, are like, oh, that's BS. No. And so, and of course, the enlisted are like, well, no, he's going to be an officer. That means we can't trust him. And so it just caused an entire row at the time.
It's interesting you say that. I am familiar with a number of districts in Canada of different commands, just through happenstance. And I used to live in Yellowknife, and Northern Command was right next to the RCMP headquarters. My dad was an RCMP officer. There's mess privileges across, but there are a number of bases and locations where, like, hi, there's a mess. One. Everybody goes to it. And I'm sure they sit in their tables differently, but I mean, as that kind of person, and certainly the experience I experienced from the RCMP side, which is not military but quasi-military.
Right.
Like the RCMP does have battle honors, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very interesting because that's never been that problem. But then again, the RCMP has no officers that do not come from rank. So that's always going to be different.
Well, I mean, remember, there's a difference. The RCMP is more of a law enforcement organization than it is a military organization. And so they have different rules. Most law enforcement organizations pretty much require you to come up through the ranks no matter what.
That's true.
And having been a law enforcement officer, I can absolutely vouch for that. The only time you might get to jump is if you have some kind of a special certification. Like I became a firearms instructor. So as an instructor, I was able to jump ranks because of my specialized training. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I don't know. My experience has been largely all rank masses, so
yeah, I mean,
it's a very interesting thing, and I'd have to really do a survey of it to really.
Well, I mean, it's like sometimes you get positional authority. I got positional authority when I became an XO. I'd only been aboard for like 2 months, but Steve needed an XO, and I'm like, okay, sign me up. And I did what was necessary to qualify to be an XO, and that caused me to make rank really much faster than would ordinarily be the case because of the necessity for positional authority, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, I went from full lieutenant to commander when I went to XO.
Well, of course. I mean, I went from ensign to lieutenant commander when I became XO, and that's what. Look, I had only been on the ship for like 3-4 weeks, and Steve's like, I need an XO. I need him right now to keep the ship out of dry dock, because that's when there was this huge break between all the senior staff on the Constellation left to go to the USS Odin.
Did you put it in?
And Steve didn't have anybody else. So, we kind of faked it. Oh, it's close. Close. 4 minutes on the East Coast.
Yeah, and as you said, positional authority, that's the problem with most lieutenants.
Mm-hmm.
And also people in retail, when they get a manager position, they think that immediately once you get the position, you're automatically going to be respected by everybody.
Yeah, no, that's not the case.
So you can get the positional authority, but if you're an idiot, they're still going to disrespect you.
Well, yeah.
And then there's the smart lieutenants who know you're going to get the positional authority and still ain't nobody going to respect you.
We had a lieutenant that was taking over the position for the lieutenant leaving. And we don't know what was said, but we do know he came to the 4 teams that were there. And he got all the senior NCOs, all the NCICs, and he said, all right, all of you are coming with me. When we were all almost bombed, he said, okay, all I want you to do is 2 things. Keep me alive and don't let me screw up too badly.
You know what?
He was the best man we ever worked with.
That is a very, very, very intelligent junior officer.
So I asked him just as I was leaving, we got to see him, and I said, hey, excuse me, I really want to know something, Colonel. He made lieutenant colonel.
Nice.
That. I said, why did you do what you did? He said, oh, that's real simple. My dad was a master gunnery sergeant. Do you think I'm dumb enough to argue with an enlisted man? I said, not if you passed his basic training.
I mean, the first thing a Nugget really needs to do is find the most senior NCO that works for him, and I use that term in quotes. And it's like, all right, chief or top or whatever that individual's title is. It says, look, your job is to do 2 things. Number 1 is to make me look like I'm not an idiot, and number 2 is to tell me when I'm being an idiot so that I can correct my behavior.
40 seconds, guys. 40 seconds for Central Florida, anyway.
East Coast.
So the East Coast.
All right, yep, East Coast, we're almost there.
No, it's not. Next week is your sister's wedding.
Yep. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock.
Now, I couldn't think of a better way to spend my New Year's. I probably would have been in bed.
Well, we're glad you didn't go to bed.
2, 1. Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
Woo-hoo!
Cheers to the East Coast. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to Florida and all of the East Coast.
Happy New Year to the East Coast. That's me. I made no resolutions because,
By the way,
I'm not a hypocrite or a liar.
the little one,
Sure,
most of
John.
you know, this is our helmsman. That's my daughter, Victoria. And this is my wife, Carol Ann.
Yeah,
She
my
is
New Year's
also-
resolution was not to make any New Year's resolutions.
Hello, folks.
Howdy.
Daddy, that is my line.
You drank it that fast?
Oh.
You're going to be
I don't know if
dumped.
any of you can hear all the gunfire that's going on outside.
Well, if I open the door over here, it sounds like they're right beside us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know they're right beside me because I look out the window and see the flashes.
I hope they all are practicing proper gun safety.
No, they're not. They're shooting up into the air, so it's going to be raining lead.
See, at least if they were using it for something like fishing,
And just as Donnie says that, I hear someone's playing it.
Humphrey, it's okay, buddy. My dog gets scared when he hears this crap. So
You're playing the song.
I gotta pet him and make him feel better.
But with as much as they're exploding out here, do something useful with it. Fix some holes or something. But most of them are using fireworks, so don't step outside.
Look, as long as they're not throwing slugs into where I live, then it's all good.
I need more.
This.
You liked it. I did like it.
It's people like that that made me wish I lived out in the country.
Wouldn't it be worse in the country?
Not
Or
where I
just
was.
be farther away?
Be further away.
Another All Lang Syne by Dan Fogelberg.
Well, if you think about it, most of the areas that do this are normally the same areas that have the shootouts.
Did you want some more?
So in this area, if you hear this, you might be getting shot at as well as fireworks.
Yeah, there's a clown over that way. He has a shotgun and he likes to go out and fire it up in the air.
Yeah, that's really bad because all that crap comes down someplace.
Where the fireworks start.
Well, that's at
I
least
know it is, Rob. That's a good. That's a good thought because that's.
I definitely
he
wish
wrote
it was
that
him.
because it actually happened. There was a little creative license there, but for the most part, it was a true story.
He just
architect
fired his
everything.
wads, but he's got them double powdered and they're a little extra loud. And he thinks he's all hot and hoppy about it. And I really want to talk to him about it one day. He's definitely under the impression it takes a Kenworth to haul what he's packing, and he really needs to understand a Volkswagen would not only be able to do it, it would just do it.
So back to the one thing you said, you're putting in a structure for enlisted rankings and job descriptions, Matt.
Yeah, these are just the the ideas that I've been kind of spitballing. But ultimately, I think one of the primary things I was tasked with doing is creating a non-commissioned officers leadership course, roughly similar to the OCC that we have right now. And so from there, I kind of got the idea of what if we created sort of a structure that went with, again, a lot of this based on my experience as reservist in the Navy, time and rate, and again in the U.S. Navy they call it striking for a particular job specialty. One of the things that inspired me early on was I think back when I was in the 8th grade, I was taking a graphic arts class in my junior high school, and the shop teacher he found out I was interested in the Navy. He gave me this great book that he had. It was that year's Navy enlisted career guide book, and it was really fascinating. He gave it to me. I took it home. I read the thing cover to cover. I was fascinated with it, and it just went through all the different jobs that are available to you in the Navy, and they have a little illustrated picture and description of what they do. And I just found it really inspiring to be like, there's this whole world where whatever it is you're interested in, from being a cook, what they now call a mess specialist or culinary specialist, to cryptographer's mate, to traditional positions like yeoman or bosun's mate, to of course, this was back from the 1970s, 1980s, so a lot of these jobs have changed. Aviation bosun's mate. I was an aviation ordnanceman when I was in the Naval Reserve, and I just found that really inspiring. Like this whole little world where everybody's got a technical expertise and a specialty. So I thought, wouldn't something like that be kind of fun as a fan experience? Again, if you want to come into it through an enlisted rank, to not only kind of go through the some of the academy courses and learn, but also if you could strike for a particular position. And I kind of tried to extrapolate what might be some Starfleet specialties, and some of them are traditional naval, like again, carry on with the tradition of a bosun's mate, who would operate small craft and be responsible for upkeep and maintenance of the vessel, to things that wouldn't exist today, like a dilithium crystal technician, roughly analogous to like a nuclear engineer or nuclear technician in the U.S. Navy today. So yeah, just working on that too, and one of those things, I'll put it before the Admiralty Board and see if that's something that I want to pursue, or am I overthinking it? Who knows? But could be a fun experience.
Did you ever read the Blue Jackets manual?
Oh yes, yeah. Very first thing I did was
I read that cover to cover. When I got one from my dad.
Yeah.
While he was in college to get commissioned, but it makes a whole lot of sense because it pretty much draws out everything an enlisted person can do.
Yeah.
And it was an exhaustive manual because you have to be able to do whatever your specialty is, plus you had to be able to do things like fire control and damage control.
Oh yeah.
And just so many different collateral duties.
Well, that's in the as they say, like in the U.S. Marine Corps, every Marine is a rifleman first.
Exactly.
In the Navy, what we were taught is every sailor is a firefighter. And they learned that through painful experience with the USS Forrestal.
God, the forest fire?
Jeez. Yeah. But those were...
USS Neversail didn't get involved?
My dad was the ADCA on the old Roosevelt.
Okay.
And he went over to the forest fire on more than one occasion to help them get their stuff straightened out.
Is that Bud in Norwood?
Yeah, there's a training video that they show us. You can actually look it up on YouTube and find it. But of course, they always would film flight operations. And so off the coast of Vietnam, a Zuni rocket fired off from an A4, and for reasons I still don't understand. And at the same time, they're refueling other aircraft. So you've got live ordnance and jet fuel on the same flight deck.
And all of a sudden, shoots yourself in the foot.
Yeah, and back then, only the damage controlmen were trained on firefighting.
Right.
So there's a scene where you see the two hose teams coming out, one laying down the AFFF and one laying down the water. And then, unfortunately, there's a bright flash where another bomb cooked off.
Right.
And when you can see again, the damage control teams are gone.
Yep.
And now you've got the other sailors now trying to figure out how to operate a hose, how to operate an OBA, how to do all these things to, fight this fire on the ship.
Fire is the worst thing you can have on a ship.
Yeah, as they told us in firefighting school, remember in the Navy, you're never more than 3 miles from land, straight down.
Exactly.
So everybody has to learn how to be a firefighter in the Navy after that. And that was...
I never heard that.
Well, I mean, it's just like submarines. It's like, I forget what it was like. I think it was U-561. It's like, they asked, how deep can it go? So it'll go all the way to the bottom unless we stop her.
Yeah. Exactly.
Matt, you might remember this one. Here's a name: USS Neversail.
That's ringing a bell. Oh yeah, the training.
Yeah, the firefighting boat.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, Naval Junior ROTC. I think it's the only Navy thing I did high school.
Yes.
I went to their boot camp every year, and the first thing
Right.
they did said, "You're going on the Neversail," and I said, "What the hell's a Neversail?" And the chief looked at me and he said, "I know you're always over there at Pendleton, but you're about to get an eye-opening experience."
Oh yeah.
I was also in the Air Marines. Boy, when I got on that, I was like, "Oh my God!"
They tried to drown you, huh?
I mean, I did a week on the Kennedy, in JRTC, and it was funny because they gave us over to some chiefs, and chiefs, wanted to jerk off the high school students because that's how they go, right? He's like, okay, I need you to go get me a 5-gallon bucket of jet wash.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, chief, I'm on it. And I immediately went to my rack and took a nap.
Yeah, it's like 50 yards of flight line.
Yeah, 50 yards of flight line, or, go check on the shaft seals. I knew about all those tricks because my dad had warned me. And so I come back 2 hours later, and the chief's like, "Where's the jet wash?" I'm like, "The jet wash is up on the deck as the product of aircrafts winding up and pushing air out, and I don't think I can collect that in a 5-gallon bucket." And she's like, "Well, where the hell have you been?" I went to my rack. I figure, if you wanted to, be like that, then, I would respond in kind. He's like, "Rogers, you're a smart ass." I'm like, "Yeah, chief, I am. But what do you want?" He's like, "You're not going to go look for the golden rivet either, are you?" I'm like, "Nope."
The two times I got to go through firefighting training in the Navy, the first time was at the Fleet Training Center in San Diego. And that was very cool. This was in 1998 or 99. Very modern facility, very cool. I kind of tongue-in-cheek referred to it as Universal Studios because that's kind of what it felt like. It was a great replication of an interior space, but the flames were all controlled with propane. So they could make the flames go up. The hose team would come in. We'd put the water on it. The flames would go down. But of course, if you've ever dealt with real fire, the main thing that's missing, of course, is the fatal choking black smoke. So we did that there, and that was great, and we passed, and it was fun. Did it again at outside of the naval station, Navy base at Gulfport, Mississippi, and this was a far more intensive model where they basically used kind of an old shipping container with kerosene on the ground. And so we put the OBAs. They've since replaced the OBAs with the new SCBAs, which are much easier to breathe through. But the OBAs, if you ever tried them, it's about 30 pounds of lead hanging on the front.
Well, the OBAs are just a filter. The SCBAs actually provide you with fresh air.
Yeah. So this was, so you're going in feeling claustrophobic enough. But I remember when I went in, I was holding on to the guy in front of me, and we all had the firefighting jackets with the reflective tape on it.
Right.
And I realized within about 10 seconds, I can't see this person anymore. He's within arm's length of me, and I can't see him.
Well, that's why you're supposed to hold on to him, dumbass.
Exactly, yeah, because of the smoke. That's when I realized, okay, the breathing apparatus works because I'm not dead right now. So that's good to know.
All right, everybody watching, I hate to break this up because actually it's fun, brings back memories or nightmares. I don't know how you want to look at it. I have been asked to remind people that the recipe book for SFI really, 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 really needs as many submissions as we can hit them with. And the email address to send them to has been scrolling through the entire show. February 28th, so the end of February is how long you've got. We know a lot of people are busy, but keep it in the back of your head. Hopefully you can pull it back forward. We really need them.
I've got a boatload of recipes, honestly.
Well, John, we're going to have a whole section on drinking. So,
I mean, no, it's not drinking. Drinking is just my personal thing.
oh, so
But
you're not going to let me pick on you? Oh, my God.
you can
must
pick
have been
on me
awful.
all you want. I mean, come on with your bad self, but I can cook.
Oh, I believe it.
I make a beautiful garlic pasta. My pea soup is legendary. You know, I mean, I've got a recipe file of hundreds of different recipes. I make an awesome chocolate peanut butter cheesecake.
Well, then you obviously should start writing it all down, John, and send
I
it
have
in.
it all written down.
Then send it all in.
Come on,
I'll-
Starfleet. Let's submit recipes and pressure them into doing multiple volumes over multiple years.
I'll send my whole recipe file.
There we
I'll
go.
send mine, but it's 3 bookcases.
Just get
Well,
prepared.
look, that's not my problem. It's all digitized, so you know.
Yeah,
All
mine
they
also
do-
include my dad's. My dad, he was a Marine. He stayed into E9, and they had to send a general to tell him it was time to retire. And when they told him, my dad literally looked at him and said, "What the hell are you talking about, Lieutenant?"
Because he knew him that long, right?
The general goes, "It's General now, Jim." He's in charge of this Marine unit for the day, and the general, when the general said that, my dad said, "Oh, no. Kuzan River Reservoir. You, scared, had
Okay,
spoiled
look.
your uniform in both directions, hiding behind a rock, Lieutenant. You're never going to change that with me." He literally just yelled, "Jim, listen. At least you have until the end of the year, and my butt's out at the first of the month. By the way,
Yeah.
barbecue, my house Sunday. Be there at He said, send your boys there at 8:15.
Yeah, if the chief has known you that long, then you pretty much just, I mean, I don't care if you're a general or what, you pretty much got to suck it up.
He was the only one that had the guts to go tell my dad. Everyone else was afraid they were going to get killed.
You know, you see an old line command master chief or top sergeant or whatever, they deserve it. When I went to firearms instructor school, it was hosted by the basic Quantico, the Marine base there. And
I know about
one
that.
of my instructors was actually a former top sergeant in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
The base commander came in to pay his dues and speak to the class on behalf of Tom. Jim Bowen was his name. He was actually the author of the Marine Corps Sniper Manual at the time.
Yes, I know the book well.
And so you've heard of Jim Bowen, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, Jim Bowen was one of the instructors, and you know, the colonel in charge of the base came to make his presence known and say hello on purpose. So that tells you a little something.
Yeah.
But
I thought
Jim was actually pretty cool. I mean,
my dad was 13 when he joined the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
He turned 14 after they hit Guadalcanal.
Damn.
Then he went on to Munda, went all the way through that. In 1975, that general, when my dad looked at him and said that, he just kind of leaned forward to get the sunlight, and he goes, "It's General now, Jim." My dad didn't give a shit.
And your dad's like, and your point?
Yeah. The general just turned it into a wine fest. He says, "Yeah, what are you complaining about? You've got until the first of the year." My dad, "Give a shit."
Mm-hmm.
And he just, the general just turned it into a wine fest. He says, "Yeah, what are you complaining about? You've got until the first of the year." I'm out at the first of the month.
You know,
Then switch gears to the barbecue.
well, I mean, the thing is becoming a top sergeant or a Master Chief Petty Officer in the Navy or whatever is almost like becoming a general as an officer. Because those are the people that you relate to and hang out with.
Yeah, my dad used to, the general once said at a different time, he was talking to my dad, and he said, one of these days we're just going to have to go get drunk and remember all the stupid shit I did.
You know?
When my dad would say, no, you don't want to know about that.
I mean, honestly, my dad did quite a bit of that, so.
Hey, Matt, what's that other pen you've got on?
So I've got two. Over here, of course, is the Starfleet.
Yeah, which is easy to identify.
And then that's actually the Master Chief Petty Officer.
Oh, okay. So that's movie area, right? Okay.
Yes, exactly.
I couldn't see it in the like in the depth of the like when it's all of us sort of together. It was really hard to see, and I was like, "Is that?" Because I was pretty sure it was that.
Right.
As an interesting point, I'm like, I think you can actually see in some of the original Cruise movies, you can actually see a couple enlisted personnel in the background with Ray, but they're never like addressed.
Yes.
Well, I'm actually trying to bring the Constellations Command Master Chief on. I just sent her the link, so hopefully she'll show up in a minute. And
my head canon was that's what all the extras are in all those red shirts.
No. Some
that
of them
get
Well, it
killed.
depends on the series, right?
Well, I mean,
but you can headcanon it how you want, Tiffany. So don't do it how you like.
In the Wrath of Khan, 80% of the engine crew, of the engineers there, were
enlisted,
either midshipmen or enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go to Annapolis and you go out when they go out aboard a ship anywhere, you will notice that there's like 5 officers on the entire team in vessel and 400 or 500 freaking enlisted personnel.
Right. Well, it's because the way they set those up is that usually the cadets end up in their second year, between their second and third year, so they get treated as enlisted because they need to know what being enlisted is like. And then later on, the first years on the next cruise become the officers.
Yes. As a matter of fact, so the university that I went to, Jacksonville University in Northern Florida, one of the reasons why I ended up there is because it has Jacksonville, if you know it, is a big Navy town. It's kind of like the San Diego of the East Coast.
Yeah, my dad was stationed in Mayport, so.
Yeah, if you're in the U.S. Navy, you will eventually pass through Jacksonville or San Diego or both.
You'll always pass through Norfolk.
Yes, yeah. And so the school had a really big Navy ROTC program. It actually was
neither one of them are
said to graduate more Marine Corps second lieutenants and Navy ensigns per capita than any place besides Annapolis. But some of my classmates and my friends, when they went out their sophomore year on that second year cruise you're talking about as enlisted, if you recall the movie adaptation of The Hunt for Red October, there's a scene where the submarine does an emergency surface and kind of explodes out of the air and comes down. And one of my friends from school was actually on board that submarine, the Dallas class submarine, when it did, or the Los Angeles class submarine when it did that surface. And so that was just, he got really excited. We went to go see that movie and said, "Look, I was on there. I remember that."
My dad, we watched that movie in the theater. My dad came with me, and my dad was actually with I think it was NESEP Naval Education Program. No, he was with and anyway, he was with a support command, and he watched that movie and he laughed his ass off. And I'm like, what is so funny? He's like, we actually tried this crap and it didn't work. Talk about a caterpillar drive. He was literally in stitches. He's like, we tried that. It doesn't work. I'm like, how do you know this? He's like, never mind. It's just, it is what it is. And I'm like, oh my God, Dad, come on, man.
Oh, it's
and
like
he's just in stitches the whole time.
So unfortunately, I will have to jump off as well. I've got to join my wife for our New Year's celebrations, but I just really wanted to say it's been great to be part of the conversation. I've really enjoyed the time here, and it's great to put some names with faces now. Yeah, absolutely.
If you get a chance, man.
It was excellent to meet you, Master Chief.
Likewise, yeah. I know my email has been attached to the Master Chief Petty Officer Starfleet email that's on the website, so feel free. I've also put it in chat, my personal email, mattpope384@gmail. So would definitely love everybody's insights and feedback, and just continue the conversation. And I'll just finish with one more sea story, and then I'll stop. But since we brought up RCMP, when I did my cruise, training cruise aboard the Nimitz, the one port that we stopped in was Victoria, British Columbia, which is a beautiful city. And it was 1 year after 9/11, and it was about 2 years after the incident with the USS Cole, where it had been bombed by a small craft. I think it was a frigate or a cruiser or destroyer that got hit by a small craft in Yemen. So the new procedure was that there was about a 500-meter barrier around the ship while it was anchored out in the harbor, and no small craft was permitted to get within that barrier. So the RCMP brought out their catamarans, and one of my jobs, I actually have some law enforcement experience here in California as well, so I was assigned to stand a watch with the RCMP, both in the middle of the day and then in the middle of the night. So at one point, there with the officers, and we're talking, and we were in the little rigid hull fast boats, and sure enough, a small craft starts making just a beeline for the Nimitz, just heading right towards it. So we go, what we would call here in the United States called Code 3, basically your emergency response. You're heading full speed, so we're skimming over the waves as fast as we can go. And again, being very used to law enforcement in the U.S., law enforcement in California, I'm expecting things to get very, very intense when we intercept these folks. So, of course, we pull up the big fishtail next to it, and I'm thinking, weapons are going to come out. Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. Shut the engine off. Pull up, big dramatic entrance. Then it's just oh, hey, how's it going? Hey, yeah. So what are you doing out here? Oh, you doing some fishing? Yeah, what'd you catch? Oh, good. Yeah. So we're going to need you to stay, about 500 yards back from the boat. So I'm just all amped up and thinking we're going to go. So it was a refreshing way to see, another way to handle it. And the guy was just, oh, I'm sorry. I was just, wow, it's really cool to see an aircraft carrier like this. But yeah, great experience being out there with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and their maritime unit. So lots of fun stuff. But anyway, thank you all for the invitation, and hope to be part of the next one. And
nice seeing you, Matt.
Very nice to meet you all.
Nice
And like I said,
meeting you.
any questions or anything, feel free to reach out anytime.
It's good to meet you, Matt, and we're glad you were able to come, and we would like to see you again because you bring valuable insights into the enlisted ranks, which we don't usually get to hear from.
Thank you very much.
That's
and also,
my opinion.
I see in the chat there's also a question, favorite SFI moment. So let me just answer that real quick. Again, it's been less than a year at this point with SFI, but I was actually probably really proud of passing the OCC so I could be part of the Admiralty Board.
Yeah.
I think I probably way overthought that.
OCC is kind of
We all
big.
did.
Yeah, but it's not a walk in the park. It's definitely requires a lot of thought, and I think some of what I'm kind of envisioning for a non-commissioned officer's leadership course would be very similar. You know, it should really feel like you've accomplished something when you've done it.
Well,
And
I mean, you know, I would personally like to see what you can come up with as far as that goes.
yeah, so I'm working on it and would be happy to share it and get feedback as we go. So I've got some of it on my computer already as I can find time, and hope to have something in Commander Starfleet's hands pretty soon here.
Okay, well, I will poke and prod him once you have that.
Very good.
Because I can get, as SXO, I can get away with that.
Yes, exactly. All right, everybody. Happy New Year to all.
Do me a
Happy New
favor,
Year
Matt,
to
send
you,
me a
Matt.
copy of what you send him.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
All right.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper. Take care.
Good night.
Night, man.
Am I overdoing it?
If you want.
Well, I'm having trouble staying awake, so we're gonna
Same
wrap.
here. I gotta take medication that I'm
We
half an
gotta
hour
get
overdue on.
Are we wrapping this up? It's not even.
But as always,
New
it
Year's.
was fun being on here.
not
Hopefully, you
even
guys
New
can
Year's
be on here
Eve.
again.
Yes, it will be.
In half an hour.
Again, we've got a new outro to put up as well. So everybody, 2022 is going to be a great new year. What do you say?
We just wish you all a happy.
Yeah, what version of COVID you think's going to be next?
We're running out of letters.
Now, when we hit Omega, then we definitely know we ran out of letters.
Never use that letter.
Yeah.
O is already used. Hong Kong.
Yeah, I don't know the Greek alphabet well enough to know how many more we've gotten to get to Omega.
It's been a really fun doing this. We hope to continue. I hope you all have a wonderful New Year. And I got to take my night meds too, because if I don't, I'm not sleeping tonight. And we've got a lot of packing to do, as well as a ton of other things we have to finish tomorrow.
You guys have a good New Year.
Thanks for letting me participate, gentlemen. How about we end this with highlight? We said with this